Hello and welcome to Savage Garden, an Interview the Vampire podcast where we delve into everything about Anne Rice's Immortal universe. We are at the end of our three-part side quest into the Talamasca TV series. We finally made it, Naomi. How are we feeling about where we've ended up?
I just keep thinking of the film Dodgeball, where they have the whole section where Justin Bateman is going, well, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
Yes.
Because, I mean, the problem is, as we feared, the show's two biggest, most significant issues are that everybody is horrifically underwritten and the pacing. So we always knew that we were going to reach the point because it took three entire episodes to set it up. And the fourth episode was probably the best they had, actually. But because it took so long to set up, we always knew that we were going to get to the point where there were only going to be two episodes left and far too much to do. So, spoiler alert, we get to the end of the season with literally nothing being explained. And so we have to hope. We discussed this previously that it is a slightly odd thing where if you're a fan of one show, you really have to kind of, which is in obviously Interview with the Vampire, there is sort of an element of you wanting all the other shows in the connected Anne Rice Immortal universe to do well, or at least to do decently enough, so that AMC continues to renew them. Because if they start getting a little bit cancellation happy, it might end up impacting on the show we really like. And I think we have to be really honest about the fact that while nobody particularly loves Mayfair Witches, and it's probably best described as pleasant second screen viewing, I think it does quite well with like newbies, people who aren't interested in anything, or I think it's a show that plays well on Netflix. I think it's that sort of show. When Interview with the Vampire hit UK Netflix and US Netflix, it did well in the UK, but I don't think it ever charted in the top 10 in the US, whereas it did in the UK, and it's because of the nature of its content. Whereas Mayfair Witches, Dark Winds, all the other AMC shows were straight in the top 10. Um, but Talamasca is an interesting one. That is also hitting Netflix worldwide shortly. Um, but yes, we have the problem that effectively this series doesn't stand alone at all. We reach the end of it, and oh, I've just pulled out two eyelashes. We reach the end of it, and we don't really know, well, anything.
No, nothing has happened really. I kind of feel like we're back to square one. Like, I
Yes.
mean, we'll get into it when we discuss that second episode, but it's like London just wasn't a thing, a necessity at all. Like there's no significance to being in that location. There's no significance to the characters. And yeah, it's all a bit frustrating. And the fact that we have two episodes left and the fact that the first one is only 40 minutes, like they really
Mm.
aren't giving themselves any time to clear anything up. I mean, the first episode that we'll talk about, the fifth episode, the Puzzle Palace, it's 40 minutes long, and I think it's like maybe six scenes. Like it just seems to like, oh, it's finished. Like, where's the third part of this episode? I'm used to like having at least another 10 minutes of like a network TV show, and it doesn't happen. And I feel like it needs that. It just needs more time because there's so many things
Yeah,
that are just left unresolved.
that's the problem. It needs more time. The problem is a six episode series commitment didn't show a phenomenal amount of faith. We have to be very honest. And but within those six episodes, things would have been very different, I think, if they could have gotten Guy in the mother house with Jasper by the end of the first episode. I think my single biggest frustration is that we reached the end of the series. And it should be said, Nicholas Denton is acting his little heart out. But we reached the end of the series, and I have no idea why anybody thinks Guy is the remotest bit relevant.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just sort of looking on IMDb with the 6 episode thing. So to compare it, The Walking Dead season one was 6 episodes. That's how you do 6 episodes of a new
Ah,
show. That was
yeah.
6 episodes. It was
So
short,
much
but it
happened.
yeah, so much happens in that first series, and obviously it went on to then become this big global phenomenon. Obviously Frank Darabont, he left after that first season, but with those 6 episodes, he did such good work. So it is possible in a short space of time, but as you say, you need to get going. You kind of need to start partway through the story and just let the audience catch up rather than spending 3 episodes getting to where we could have easily have gotten to in the one.
Yeah, because you just don't find out anything about anyone. I don't know why Guy was relevant. We had all those scenes of his law firm, and at one point, I'm sorry, I appreciate I'm the I'm the lawyer on this, but he says I was about to do contract law. Guy, all law is contract law. Contract law is not a thing. You mean you were about to do corporate and commercial, for God's sake. And it's just tiny little things like that that drive me fucking insane. Go on a law firm website, like, one of the big US ones, and have a little look at what their areas of law are, and then write it in your script.
I mean, also they have lawyers working as part of the production. Every film and television production has lawyers. Just ask one of them, kind of like, what sort of stuff could you guys do?
No lawyer says I do contract law. Every lawyer says I do it's always basically corporate and commercial. But I mean, he was about to go and be a corporate lawyer or a litigator, actually. It wasn't tremendously clear if he was moving into litigation. But yeah, it was just stuff like that just makes me scream. And it's also, we'll get into it, we talk about Jasper. There's also been a kind of a slightly odd disconnect on this one between production and marketing. Because Jasper, we were told straight away, was a vampire. And then we had that odd thing where William Finkner was at SDCC not answering questions about him being a vampire and
Yeah.
trying to be coy about the fact when that was the first piece of information ever released about the show. Then there were a couple of interviews and pieces when they were like, what do we know about Jasper? What we know about him is he's very, very, very old. And then, of course, the actual scripts counter that. I mean, they do and they don't. Obviously, that's what we'll discuss. But it's just a really odd one that all of the pre-marketing for the show was like, Jasper is an ancient vampire. And then the actual show is like, oh yeah, no, Jasper is a vampire, but he's super young, honest. And
Oh,
yeah, all of it is just like a little bit disconnected and it's just not coherent. I'm just confused as to what the coherent strategy was because we were talking about the fact that we kind of were and still are very open to having people from the show on for interviews and for chatting. And we kind of made that very clear to the PRs, but there actually hasn't been much. There's been like a really tiny handful of profile pieces with Nicholas Denton in the kind of very big outlets that you would expect people to talk to, but not much else. Outside of perhaps SDCC and New York Comic Con, I've not seen them on the chat shows. There's been very little, which also is a weird show of lack of faith. Let's chat about the Puzzle Palace because our 40-minute penultimate episode. So we start with more, Talamasca side quest stuff with the orphan, which we were like, why are we doing this? But then, of course, as it turns out, this is completely central to the narrative. So fine. We are introduced to Emma, who is Helen's sister, and all the observational stuff about how she can tell everybody what steps there are and everything else. And as soon as I saw this, I went, oh, so Kat was correct. The 752 is a person and it's Helen's sister.
it's always a child.
I was like, oh, jolly good. So, as Kat said, the 752 is a person. The book is indeed, as we gathered, a scrapbook of crap. And the 752 is a person, and it is Helen's sister. So we know that it takes the show is brilliant in that it does a lot of dun 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 moments. But like anyone with even a vague familiarity with genre knows from the cold open that the 752 is a human being and it's Helen's sister. So, yay. We've sold that plot in the first 30 seconds. Jolly good. And we start off immediately as we finish the last episode. And one of the biggest frustrations about this is that they don't explain the gaping plot hole of the fact that nobody seems to realize that Doris is in the back of the car.
Yeah, not in this episode, at least.
Oh, do they explain it in the second episode? Because I didn't even get to it.
No, but the reveal about Doris's nature would explain why some people in the car at least can't tell that she's there.
Yeah, but Jasper should have been able to.
Kenny, I thought you could only with because Louis and
No, 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 no,
oh
no.
no,
It's
yeah, because
only
it's
if
only ones that you
you,
make. Yeah,
it's only you
yeah,
make her.
yeah,
So the
yeah. No,
stat can't. Yeah.
I tried Talamasca, I tried.
Yeah, no, sorry guys, but no, there is no justification for why Jasper cannot sense Doris unless we are about because they've not even included a line about Doris being, I don't know, some sort of master ninja about being able to block her mind. I mean, Armand knew who Louis was, who his maker was, and everything else within 20 seconds of meeting him. He just
Louis was
pretends
terrible.
otherwise because Louis is terrible. Took him a little bit longer with Claudia, but he still knew damn well when Claudia was inducted into the coven that their maker was Lestat, and that presumably Lestat was dead at that point. And of course, this all assumes that we're not going to discover in the third series that he wasn't already holding Lestat by that
Yeah.
point. But no, there is no justification for Jasper not noticing that Doris is in the boot. He can read minds, even with maybe perhaps Doris being able to block, he should still be able to sense. That was the whole point about the Paris Coven, that as soon as Louis and Claudia ended up in
Yeah.
Paris, the Coven can sense them. So there is, we are skipping obviously to Doris's nature here, but there is no justification whatsoever for Jasper not being able to know that Doris is in the goddamn boot of the car. So we arrive in the garage, and then we have this very lengthy, very enjoyable queer baiting scene of Jasper being super dominant and slapping Guy around and kicking him on his back and all of this. And again, this is all just silly. I mean, firstly, I love the part where Guy was really surprised that he turns around and Jasper is gone. Yeah, they're
Yes.
vampires. They're speedy as fuck, bro. You already saw that in the opening episode, so I don't know why this was a surprise to you. And I mean, I greatly enjoy seeing all the art and slash fic that's going to be written about them. I believe this is to the extent that people are getting involved and are sort of trying to find something to hold on to. It is, of course, Guy and Jasper that is igniting the interest. I think I don't know what it's called. I saw somebody say Geisper, but I'm sure there's another one. Gasper. I think it's called Gasper. I think that's the pairing, which is a really unfortunate slash name. Gasper.
Yeah.
But Geisper's not better.
No.
Gasper's at least entertaining. Um, I mean, that scene is fun. It's great. William Finkner is doing his best William Finkner. Again, it doesn't make sense why he doesn't just say, oh, the girl is one of the witches. I met her the other night. Don't really know her, bro.
Yeah.
Why is he protecting Doris like she's his lifelong companion?
It's just very trusting, but Jasper doesn't like liars.
No, even though Jasper is very clearly a phenomenal liar himself. So Jasper's getting himself all upset and he wants his book and he doesn't want to stand in the way and blah, 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 blah. And so he's pushing Guy around. We got to appreciate there's a little frizz on there. I mean, I'm going to be real with you. If Guy and Jasper started hooking up, my interest in the series would significantly increase. At least there would be like something to hang a hat on. You know what I mean? If there was that
Yeah.
sort of much more of that kind of thing. But instead they just get into a bit of a fight. And then Jasper decides that he is going to make Guy dig his own grave and he is going to keep him as food for all of the little inbred creatures. And again, I'm like, it's kind of way too early in the narrative for this kind of a threat. I mean, was it a bluff? Was it not? We're not really clear. But it doesn't really matter because at that point Doris appears and sets him on fire.
Yes, Super Doris to the rescue.
And I mean, I've literally written down it is way too early in the narrative for this because we've literally just gotten Guy and Jasper together. His whole point was to infiltrate the London mother house, work out what was going on, find out what's going on with his mother. And within the space of a single episode, Doris gets out of the car and immediately sets Jasper on fire.
Yeah, because I mean, they had that little conversation at the end of end of episode 3, where where Guy turned up and was like, "Oh, I've had enough of the Talamasca. I want to work with you." And then they had what, 1 or 2 scenes in episode 4, and then
Yeah.
Guy was sent on his little field trip, and then this is kind of the aftermath of that field trip, and already they've known each other for what, 2 days? Like it's not time to
It's
build
too
up any sort of
soon.
relationship.
It's too soon. I mean, and this is the problem with the pacing because it is too soon in the narrative. If they'd met in episode 1 and we are now in episode 6, and there has been perhaps a bit of a time lapse over the course of the series, so that Guy has actually been in place for months at this point. Okay, fine. But no, he's known him for 24 hours, and we are already basically burning Guy's entire reason for being in London, literally and figuratively, to the ground. And I'm just like, okay, so what was the point of sending Guy to London? What was the point of any of that storyline? Because within 24 hours of meeting Jasper, Doris gets involved and burns him, basically, burns both Jasper and Guy's reason for being there. And again, there's no reason for Doris to be there.
No?
There is no reason for Doris to have followed this sad little puppy-eyed white man into the car and then risked her life to set Jasper on fire. And particularly with giving what we find out about Doris's nature, this is quite a no-no.
Yeah.
This is a big no-no. This is one of the biggest no-nos. But yeah, there's no reason at all because at this point in the plot, and we do find out how central Doris is to everything. At this point in the plot, there is no reason for Doris to be involving herself in Talamasca business other than the fact that obviously she's very upset that Kevis is dead. But she knows nothing about Guy. It's not like, again, she's been trailing Guy for months and she realizes this is finally her opportunity to get in on the inside and she finally rescues him. They've, again, met once on the bridge. Then she rescued him quite correctly from the mess he was in at the hotel where Raglan James turned on him. And now she's decided to get in the van, follow him, go in, kill his henchmen, and set Jasper on fire. It's like, girl, you're doing an awful lot here for a guy you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm Doris, am I doing that? Gotta be honest with you. No, I'm not.
No,
That's other people's business. That's other people's business. That's other people's concern. Might be keeping a bit of a tab on Guy to see what he's doing. Am I wading in to try and like firebomb people? No, no, I'm not. And I mean, it's not even a great rescue attempt because, of course, all the zombies then get out and start attacking them. So they then sort of have to rescue each other. But yeah, I was just like, I mean, I was watching it and I actually got kind of actively irritated at this point because obviously it didn't. But I thought this was going to take Jasper out of the narrative. And I was like, I can't believe we've had all that build up. And that doesn't take place. But I've literally written down no Jasper, no interest. And what the fuck, Doris? This is a guy you met yesterday. But also, we then find out that she's done this because she's pretty sure that Jasper is the big villain that hired the assassin and got Kevis killed. But can we just be clear? Even with my frankly quite homicidal nature at times, pretty sure probably isn't enough to go around flame throwing people.
no. I mean, you're the one that studied law. I don't think that probably, holds up too well.
No, I'm not sure that, actually, I thought he maybe possibly kind of might have killed Kevis, but equally it could have been any one of the members of the Talamasca. Is going to be a tremendously good defense to
Yeah.
setting someone on fire. So yeah, I found that I enjoyed the Jasper and Guy sequence. I thought it was fun. It was blatant. It was blatant pandering to try and gain some interest because the problem is, and we instill is that this is a show with no pairing. And people do like a pairing. People love themselves a pairing, and there isn't one. So I quite enjoyed that scene. But the whole sequence of her setting Jasper on fire, it's just too soon in the narrative. But it's also the penultimate episode, so it's ridiculous. And then we go back to more cop side quest. And I kind of got so bored I didn't write anything else down other than cop side quest because I just can't be doing with the comedy coppers. And then we see William Finkner again, and he's in lovely, super crispy burn makeup.
Yeah, Bernie Jasper. I do appreciate how Bill Finkner was obviously like, yeah, no, cool, yeah, we can do burn prosthetics for like one scene though, yeah. Like,
For
can I
one
have
scene.
some? I want to be like a super old, super fast healy vampire. Just like, let's just speed through this.
Yes. And I mean, yeah, we will talk about that when he reappears. But yeah, he's in it, the crispy makeup for 30 seconds in one scene. And I mean, assuming that's him in that sequence, which I assume it is, and not a stunt person. I mean, that probably took 8 hours to put that on for that one sequence.
And I appreciate that he just went, yeah, let's just do the one. Yeah. He's not a Jacob Elordi or a Bill Skarsgård. That man has got more important things to do with like 10 hours of his day than sit there in a makeup chair day in, day out.
Yeah, it's like we can do it for one. You get one. That's all you get. And then we have Guy meeting Helen. I did appreciate Guy's flirt for the dramatic, leading her into the disgusting peep show booth. And I was like, oh, let's not be touching anything in there with bare fingers. Like, gross.
Yeah, it was quite a fun scene with him like being like you have to like put a coin in. I think the only other like sort of like peep show token booth scene that comes to mind for me is in the Crow sequel, City of Angels. That's how Thomas Jane's character meets his demise is in a peep show.
Amazing.
So you've got your Ash Corvus character. He pulls away the pretty lady, and then Thomas James puts some coins in, and then suddenly he's faced with the crow. And yeah, so this scene was fun because it reminded me of that scene, which is more fun, but still.
um, so now we need to talk about Helen, and we have to be very clear here. If the end game isn't that Helen is Guy's mother, Elizabeth McGovern's acting choices throughout this entire series are clinically insane. I feel like she's been told that because I don't I mean, I go back and forth on her acting throughout this entire thing because it's very affected. It's very kind of simpering sex kitten a lot. But this entire scene, if she hasn't been told that she's Guy's mother and she's known this from minute one, this scene is clinically insane because she's all like, oh, and she's crying and everything else. And I'm like, Helen, babes, this is a man that you've manipulated and paid to go. There is no relationship between Guy and Helen.
No.
There isn't one. She is his employee. Sorry, wrong word. She is his employer. She kind of manipulated, paid, got him at a bad spot in his life. Well, not really, actually. She didn't get him a bad spot in his life. That's the whole point. She came in and removed him for what would have been financial security. But she's offered him cash to come and do this job that he's doing because he's desperate to meet his mother. Even though, to be honest, that motivation sort of falls away throughout the course of the series. And the guy's entire strategy in this sequence is you care about me, right? So help me. There is nothing to base that on.
Because especially in the very opening where we see the other Talamasca agent, splattered in front of the train and stuff, and then they take the remains to Jasper, and Jasper's like, oh, she'll just send somebody else. This is a very calculating woman that we are painted this picture of. So why then is the replacement? She's like, oh yes, I'll help you flee the country. Yes.
I know none of it none of it makes sense. If they introduce someone else as Guy's mother in, well, if we get a second series, her acting is just going to look so silly in retrospect because this doesn't work unless she's his mum, which has to be the way they're going. I mean, there's a naff line later about how Doris thinks he feels like family, and also explains the non-sexual meet cute vibes with Doris, because obviously if that goes that way, then she is his aunt. But it's like, really? But yeah, this whole scene, again, in the context of the show, in the context of the timeline, makes no sense because Guy is entirely reliant on this woman not being in a manipulative, traitorous cunt who could have sold him out in a heartbeat. And I appreciate he's got nowhere else to go with that. But it's a really weirdly over emotive mummy vibe scene, which is all like, yes, I do care about you. She's all moist eyed. And I'm like, and I'm a little bit disappointed because I wanted her to end up being the absolutely spectacular villain of the piece, which is not how they've gone. But I would very much have preferred that. I would have preferred this all to be absolute lies, and that's not the way they've gone with it. I mean, it might be further down the line if they get the opportunity to do that. But this kind of simpering, slightly weak, oh, yes, I care about you, mummy type thing. Ugh. I was like, again, like, where are we going with this? If she's not his mum, then can we just embrace this super gross, mummy, sexually charged thing they've got going on and have them hook up? Like, there's either just go the obvious route, which is that she's a mum, or go the weird route, or do both. But this isn't Interview with the Vampire, which will be embracing both with Gabrielle. But yeah, just make a choice. I mean, I'm staking the claim that they're gonna have her be his mum
I think that's fair.
because literally, if they don't, nothing else makes sense.
And I mean, they made the 752 a person. So it's not a show that is concerned with doing something different.
So I was trying to work out. So, and again, we're skipping ahead. We sort of haven't said it, but fuck it. Daryl's is a vampire, and obviously Helen's sister. Um, So Doris gets turned in 1985. So does it work for Helen to be his mother? What is he? Probably what are we supposed to believe Guy is? Late 20s, early 30s?
Yes, late 20s, but yeah.
Because it takes quite a lot. It takes quite a long time to go through. Just purely from a law point of view, it's 3 years of law, which would be, I think it's the juris, whatever, in the States. And then for him to be qualifying, he's probably looking at 3 to 5 years of education, depending on whether he has a master's or not. And I think it said he did. So yeah, I am imagining he's 28, 29.
Yeah. And Doris is kind of around his age when
Yeah.
she is turned, so which would make Helen around that. And then she would still have a good few baby years because obviously, like, Guy would have to have been born, and Guy would have been born in the 90s.
Ugh, disgusting. I know, I keep thinking, because this is the problem when you get old, you think that 1985 is 20 years ago, and
Oh,
it wasn't.
it's 40 years ago. So yeah, so she would have had to have had him at some point during the 90s.
Yeah, so if we assume that Doris was like what, 28, then yeah, Helen is now. So if we assume Doris was 28 and that was 40 years ago, Helen is now 68. But if we could assume like, so let's say Doris was like 25-ish, I think that makes kind of, I mean, how old is Elizabeth McGowan? Let's look her up. Do, 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 do. I think it makes sense, but she would have to have given birth to, yeah, she would have to have given birth to him in the next, she is 64, so kind of bang on. So yeah, if Doris is 25 when she was term, which would have made Helen 25 in 1985, she would have basically had, yeah, like 15 years, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if she'd have had him sort of like, so if he was born in 1990, he would be 35. So if he was born in like 95, he would be around 30. Yeah, around 30.
Yeah.
So she would be like, she would have been a geriatric pregnancy.
Yes, the joys that I mean, I have had zero interest in having children, but the joys of you having children from 35 onwards, as I understand, they do actually slap the word
Oh no,
geriatric
no,
on
no.
the front of your
It's
thing.
from 30 onwards, you're a geriatric pregnancy.
30.
Yeah. Yeah, so
That's disgraceful though.
when I had Aurora, I was like 31, 32, and yeah, I was classed as a geriatric pregnancy, which was great because my mum had me when she was 17, and then my last sister when she was 37. So she went from being like a ooh naughty teen mum in the 80s to, oh, you all right, old girl? Are you okay, Granny? Do you need some assistance? So yeah, it's wild.
And it's also crazy because there's been so many, we're going off on a tangent, but we should go off on a tangent. There's been so many studies that show that women's fertility is actually goes on for years longer than the general concept that actually women are. There's an awful lot of women having oops babies in
Yes.
their sort of mid 40s at the moment. A
Yes.
surprising amount of them.
So
Yeah.
Madeline West, who she can always bring it back to Neighbours, who played Dion Bliss in Neighbours, she used to be married to the Australian chef Shannon Bennett, and they had like 6 or 7 children together. And then they got divorced, and she moved on with her life. And then there was a load of news articles going, I thought it was the perimenopause. Turns out I'm pregnant. And yeah, she's kind of like mid 40s and has popped out another baby.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is insane. Because all these things are just based on ancient studies and assumptions of women's reproductive health, because nobody's actually bothered to spend any time, effort, money, or anything else to determine these things. I've had the joy of, I mean, I am in perimenopause, but all the fun of trying to work out where I am. And I think I'm way earlier in the process than everyone thought I was. And everyone's like, but you're old. I'm like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Appreciate your thoughtfulness on this subject that, You obviously think I'm literally about to die,
Yeah.
when actually, no, not so much. There is still the possibility of children. Do we want children? No. Holy God, no. Could I still have them? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's fun. So yeah, I think if we assume that she had Guy in her late 30s, because he wouldn't necessarily recognize them, particularly because they've gone for the platinum boy page boy wig, platinum blonde page boy wig all the way through. He's not going to
He
recognize
was
his
young as well,
mother.
wasn't he? He was what, like 7 or 8, I think he says, when
Yeah.
when she died, and that's a long and it's a very traumatic time. And he seemed to have been in
Yeah.
love, seemed to have been more bothered about his teacher, who he was in love with. That's
Oh yeah, he really wanted to bang that
I
teacher.
mean, he has had just mummy issues way back. He's saying, "Oh, my mum died, and now I've got mummy issues." No, dear, you always had mummy issues.
See, the thing is, I wish the show was a bit freakier. Just like, yes, have Guy and Jasper fuck. Let's do it. Let's get on there. You know that we would think they would be up for this. I sense it.
We've all seen Go.
Yeah, just do it. And then, or if you're not going to do that, fuck it. Let's go the other way. Let's have him hook up with Helen. Why not? She's a very attractive woman. She's very slinky. She's beautifully dressed throughout.
We
Let's do
see
it.
enough of it the opposite way around. Tom Cruise's girlfriends on screen are always old enough to be his daughters in real life.
I know. And you kind of forget because, I mean, everyone in Hollywood gets some degree of plastic surgery and they're all fibbing when they don't. They say they don't. But he is much older than you think he is.
Yeah.
He is much older than you think he is, and all the wives and everybody. He's very good at choosing women that don't appear like terrible twinks on stage in comparison to screen on comparison to him. People like Rebecca Ferguson, like Haley Atwell, but they are still substantially younger. It's crazy. So yeah, why can't we have a little bit of, guy fun, whatever? I mean, Haley is 43. I didn't realize she was that. But he kind of does. And how old is Tom?
He's 60 some like 66, 67.
63.
No,
63.
I had him
He's
older.
63. No, he's 63.
That's still 20 years. So
Yeah, so hey, Haley's 20 years younger than him. I mean, Rebecca, she's my angel. I love her. Rebecca is, oh yeah, yeah, you're younger. So he aims for about a 20-year disparity on screen. We were talking about this the other day, weren't we? I think it was you in compare about Happy Gilmore 2, where Julie Bowen was kind of blown away to be asked to come back as Adam Sandler's wife because her automatic assumption was that they were going to cast an actress in her late 20s for Sandler's partner. And to be fair, he doesn't do that in his any of his films. He's always age appropriate and he always has his kids on screen, but it's rare. So yeah, why not? I am all for Elizabeth McGovern getting hers. Get in there, girl. But yeah, I'm sure she's good. I mean, and again, as I said, if we're going to introduce another character as the mother, all of her acting choices are going to seem insane because there is zero reason for her to be simpering over this profoundly mediocre spy. Because the single biggest issue I have is that at no point during this series does Guy justify why he's there.
no.
The only, and I do mean only reason to justify Guy being in this narrative, other than obviously being our point of view character, is for him to be Helen's son and for somebody else to have been about to discover that and kill him. So
Yeah.
she brings him in to keep him safe.
Yeah. I think there's a better way to get into a story about the Talamasca. And that is towards the end of the final episode. So we'll talk about it when we get to it. But I think that is the better way to have maybe got into this world.
Yeah. And I mean, so getting back to the narrative of this episode, so we have this weird, weird scene of Guy basically betting everything on Helen giving a damn whether he lives or dies, insisting on bringing Doris along with him. Again, you've known her for 24 hours. You are way too trusting. And there's no zero excuse, except of course there is, for Helen to decide to help Doris at this stage in the narrative, even though she does. They then go to the safe house. Again, I've written down, why is Doris going with him? Doris, what the fuck are you doing? And then she asks a fair question, like, um, why do you believe Helen, Guy? Because again, there's no reason in the narrative. And he's acting his little heart out. I've literally written down, if she's not his mother, I'm going to be pissed because it's just nonsense. And then we cut back to Jasper. And as we said, wow, Jasper heals really fucking quick for a young vampire.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just like, again, like the narrative is that he is effectively a younger vampire than Louis. Louis took weeks, months
Months, yeah.
to recover, months to recover. He took months to recover from being attacked by Lestat, and he took months to recover from his suicide attempt. And Jasper heals pretty much in 24 hours. So, no, Jasper is not a 40-year-old vampire. Jasper is really fucking old. Just like, and presumably has access to a vast vat of blood somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're trying to do the rug pull that Interview did with Armand, which, as we've discussed
It
on
doesn't
the main,
work.
we discussed on the main show, the reveal of Armand was something that did blindside some people, but here it's just it's too obvious. It's too obvious. I mean, obviously this isn't sort of set strictly attached to a text where, like Interview was. So I was kind of we were both to some degree waiting for Amond, but you obviously had a very distinct vision in your head of
Mm,
who that would be.
I had my vision.
Whereas I was just like, who is this person? Is it going to be? Oh, it is Armand. But
Yeah.
that was, it was well done. It was well orchestrated. Here, it's it's quite obvious. He opens the curtains, at the start of episode 4,
Mm,
in direct daylight, isn't phased. That's not the life of a young vampire.
no, and as I said, the marketing from day one was he's a vampire and he's old.
He's an ancient vampire. Yeah.
He's an ancient vampire. That was in the marketing. That was in the interviews they put out. And I'm trying to think whether it was the outlets that put that he was an ancient vampire and whether they were meant to or not. But certainly that was the information that was out there about him. So it's truly bizarre. And then we get a really lengthy sequence of Doris and Guy sort of meet cuting, but sort of not over board games.
Yeah.
And again, this is where, because it's all very non-sexual.
Mm.
So again, this has to be, it's like, what are we doing here? I've literally written down, we don't have time for this. Like, why have we got this incredibly lengthy meet cute scene? And then we have the only 10 seconds in the episode where I was like, oh, and that's when she goes into the pub and what's playing? That's that song. But if they were hoping to get a bit of attention, I think a snippet of an unreleased song might have achieved that a little bit better. We've had Longface since SDCC 2024. So yes, it's very cool to have that tiny bit of connection. And I still say they could go wilder with it, like have Lestat on the back of, the newspaper or stuff like that.
Buses. London is full of buses. Buses are plastered in marketing. Have Lestat draw, his face fly past in the background on the side of a bus.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, if you've never been to London, all of our buses are drowning in marketing. And occasionally you'll find one where they've just not updated it and it will
Yes.
be like with a really old film or something on the side. But yeah, we get, and sometimes it's the weirdest films that get the bus promos as well. So yes, that would have been cool. But anyway, Helen goes into a local pub and picks up a gun, as you do. As you do. Now we've got the cops doing meet cutes. And again, do we have time for the cops to be doing meet cutes? No. Why are the cops doing meet cutes? Because we need the IT guy out of the room for the point at which they finally crack the algorithm. I was like, oh. And then we have the terrible massacre of all the witches on the boat. And good for Helen for flat out lying to Olive's face and telling her that Guy and Doris were on the boat. Don't get much past Helen, do you? She knew instantly. Or at least she didn't trust Olive. So Olive is a fucking traitor. Bad Olive. I'm afraid I found that reveal a little bit hard to care about one way or another because again, Olive has had four
Yeah,
lines.
again, in the words of late great Nikki Graham, who is she? Who is she? I know nothing about this character at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole who is this person? I know nothing, you know. She's been she's arrived in the background of a handful of scenes looking astonishingly beautiful and has done very little else. So yeah, the whole dun 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 moment of Olive being the traitor. We get the fun split screen stuff, which hasn't really worked since Silence of the Lambs did it the first time, of, you know, all the bad people like racing up to where we're supposed to believe is that going to be outside Guy and Doris's safe house, and of course they're all going to Maida Vale to the boat to kill the witches. Helen, bit of a bitch, setting all these poor women up to be slaughtered because she did. All of their deaths are on Helen's hands. But, you know, do we feel like Helen's going to lose much sleep over that? I don't think so. But yeah, Oliver's a trader working for Jasper. I mean, I think we probably could have called that one of them were. Um, and then we skip to the sequence at the end where we can see that Doris has the book, which is meant to be more of a gotcha moment, except it's not. And that was that. 40 minutes of weirdness, really.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to some of the episodes, a lot happens, but it's in such a short amount of,
A lot
for such a
happens.
short amount of time that you
Mm.
just can't really grasp on or retain. I mean, I saw this early this week and I've already forgotten aspects of that happened. So
Girl, I watched it last night. I watched it last night. To be fair, I watched it quite late last night after three bourbons, but I watched it last night and I don't, it's like, I mean, I had to write Olive's name down because otherwise I would have forgotten it. They've just not, it's just, it comes back to the pacing. The pacing has killed this show, unfortunately, in terms of getting people involved because, like, I feel like if you'd had five episodes of Guy and Jasper, you know, we don't have. I mean, I'd much rather that people take the approach of Interview the Vampire and not queerbait. But if you could have at least built that relationship and tried to hang a hat and some fan interest on that. But the truth is, we get a handful of scenes of them together, and then Jasper's on fire. But it doesn't really matter that Jasper's on fire because 2 seconds later, as you said, William Finkner was like, fuck that. I'm not dealing with those prosthetics. And he's back to being fine with a handful of tiny splodges. So, in the course of an episode, we set Jasper on fire, but it doesn't matter. We have a weird sequence of Guy basing the entire safety of his life and that of Doris's life on Helen not being, well, a cunt, to be frank. And then we discover that Doris has the book, except she doesn't really. And then we immediately launch into the 752, back to my favorite green vintage tiles, where we find the Talamasca in the 80s, who are all terrible, terrible people. And we have this big sequence of them turning somebody. But the problem is, at this point in the narrative, there is no one else it can be but Doris.
Yes, I do enjoy though that they made sure that we knew it was the 80s before the subtitle came up with the 80s because they all had a mullet. They all had a mullet.
They all had a mullet, but also that particular shade, because it's always the thing everyone gets wrong when they do the 80s on the screen, that they always have everything be pink and neon and beautiful, when the reality is so much of it was brown and that terrible, terrible orange and yellow. Everything was like shades of shit. I don't remember a neon pop paradise, but I do remember so many shades of orange, yellow, and brown because that was what so many people had and that kind of plasticky furniture.
Mm.
So yeah, we have this vampire who's killed two other vampires, um, being basically blackmailed. And I was sitting there going, this guy's accent seems to have turned Scottish, and it wasn't Scottish at the beginning. And then, of course, it turns out that him being Scottish is actually quite relevant for the choice of actor later on. But I was like, what is going on here? Because it sort of becomes more Scottish as it proceeds. Um, but yeah, the problem is there's not enough people for this to have been this cold open again. The same way that the previous cold open said, "Oh, okay, the 752 is a book, and it's I'm sorry, is a person, and it's Helen's sister." This cold open tells you, okay, it's Doris. The vampire is Doris because there's no one else. Who else could it be? We know it's not Guy. The only other person it could be is Helen, and we were pretty confident that's not the face because, in fact, purely because of the fact that Elizabeth McGovern is there with a normal human aging face.
Yeah.
She is, and we commented on this previously. It is now such a profound rarity to see actresses in their 60s with a natural face that it is worthy of comment, sadly. So, I mean, if it had been a different actress, there are plenty of actresses now in their 60s that do look like they're in their 40s. We might have had more room for a bit of a, ooh, could it be Helen?
Mm.
No, no, we couldn't here. It was Doris, full stop. Okay, so right, Doris is a vampire. Fine. That's pretty much all the reaction I had to that.
Yeah, I think my issue with the whole Doris being revealed as a vampire was that the Talamasca was very keen in its marketing again to say that there was going to be like vampires and witches and a load of other things. But like, yeah, we had like one
Mm,
witch and like we've seen some other witches kind of hanging around, but we haven't really seen anything from the witches. And I know that Guy is obviously some sort of telepath, but we haven't really seen that utilized or any other things that the watchers are watching. And it's just gone, oh, well, shall we just default back to vamp? Yeah, let's just be vampires. I mean, there's more otherness in Mayfair witches than there is in Talamasca.
I do feel sad that we introduced the witches and then had them immediately killed off. These witches didn't appear to have any powers whatsoever, or if they did, they certainly didn't do anything to stop themselves being slaughtered.
Hmm.
So again, it's like, oh, so we had what, powerless witches? I mean, again, why not just have be with a friend? Or why not just make Doris queer? Be with like a queer community on the boat or something. I don't know why, because again, we're sort of slightly using witches as otherness here, aren't we, as an allegory? But um, yeah, I feel a little bit frustrated that we introduced a coven of witches and then did not showcase that they had any abilities whatsoever. So that was deeply frustrating. Um, do we think the massacre on the boat would have made national news?
Not national news, local news, sure. Unfortunately, the way that the world works these days, probably not.
No, because they see it. So obviously Doris is like, I'm done waiting in this house. I'm leaving. I don't want to get you hurt. Which I get actually from Doris's point of view, because to be honest, at this point, Doris shouldn't be involving herself with Guy and vice versa. Um, but then they all leave because they see the massacre on the boat on the national news on the BBC, which I could have understood if they'd been showcased that they'd shown it on social media,
Yeah,
but not on national news. And I've literally written, "Why are we going near the scene, you blundering idiots?
yeah,
Why are we walking near the scene of a massacre when you have been consistently shit at spycraft the entire way?" And of course, the cop immediately just finds and arrests them. Then we have Helen, and I was a bit confused as to who Melville was, but he was the doctor in charge of the experiments. And of course, we have the reveal, dun dun dun, which we're already way ahead of at this point. And I was kind of a bit frustrated that we're already way ahead because it would have been better had it been a proper reveal
yeah.
that Doris is Emma, Emma is the 752, and in order to ensure that she is effectively eternal and the sole sort of receptacle for all of the Talamasca's knowledge, um, she is a vampire. I'm not sure I entirely buy the reason for having one sole receptacle of all their knowledge.
No, I mean, vampires can still be killed, so it's not foolproof.
No, I mean, it's not that hard. Cut her head off, boom, dead. Shove her in a fire, she's dead. Um, I don't really understand why they wouldn't have just had digital backups that were like really heavily protected, or have some sort of, that four mother houses across the world or something are the only ones with access to some of it. And so you need, in the typical way that these things always do, you need all of the mother houses to have all of the knowledge. And I mean, I get it's about control, but equally, Doris has presumably been on the run for years at this point, which again, they don't really do anything with.
No, and everything just feels rushed. And it's like, oh shit, with the last episode. So yeah, Doris is she's a 752 and she's a vampire. And yeah, so she's like, yeah, that answers like some questions. So that'll do. Let's just yeah, that'll make sense to everybody.
It's I almost feel like it was too much to have her be the 752 and the sister and a vampire.
Yeah.
I feel like one of these would have been fine. I feel like having her be the sister, fine. I thought we were going to go with Guy being the 752 because, again, we still have no justification for Guy being in this narrative. So there had to be something, and obviously he didn't turn out to be the sister. So I thought that, yeah, I thought he was going to be the 752, but no, we have all three reveals in one tiny human person who's now a vampire. And we get more scenes of Olive breaking them out badly. She's not convincing remotely in any of these sequences as the MI5 agent, by the way.
No, also, when you're taken into police questioning and there's two of you who are both suspects in a mass murder, do you get interviewed together, or is that how you then corroborate each
No,
other's story? I mean, I haven't studied law, but
no.
I've seen plenty of police procedurals, and that isn't kind of how it's done.
This is not what Benson and Stabler would do. I have watched way too many episodes of Law and Order to know that you don't put them in the same room. You immediately separate them and you tell them that the other one's squealing.
Yeah, you need to check out the story.
Yeah, no, it's nonsense. It's all nonsense. We have them in the same room. But of course, she hasn't really arrested them because she doesn't have any permission to, because she's gone completely outside of the chain of command. So none of any of it is legal or anything else. It's all nonsense. Uh, and yeah, it was all just, for God's sake, all of it. And there was a point where I was like, Guy, you can read minds. Surely you can actually work out that Oliver's a bad guy, which he eventually finally does. And then we get the reveal of Doris's vampiric nature, which is very brief. Um, and again, Jasper still should have been able to censor. The mother house should have been able to censor. The whole thing is daft. And then we find that, as we had guessed, the book is just a scrapbook. It's just all nonsense. And then Doris is like, I'm the 752. And I've literally written down, yeah, we knew that, babes. Because we were quicker than that. And then I did just sigh a little bit at the flashback to the scene where we discover that Doris is the one that killed the assassin because she realized
Yes.
that he had killed Kevis. But more importantly, that she was in the room while Guy was blundering around. Guy, you are so, so bad at spycraft. And then, towards the end of the final episode, we decide it's a good time to introduce another character. So we now introduce James Cosmo, who is a phenomenal actor. Love, love, love him in everything. And he is the guy from the cold open. He is Houseman, hence the Scottish accent. And he is like, I don't know, the Talamasca big bad, I guess.
Yeah, so
He
he's
is King
yeah,
Talamasca.
because Amsterdam seems to kind of be Amsterdam is mentioned a few times in Mayfair Witches,
Yeah.
so it's very much like the center point of the Talamasca, it seems. And yeah, then as the person that's in charge of that, yeah, I guess he's King Talamasca. He's got some interesting ideas, but yeah,
Yep, he's King Talamasca, and he's just like sitting there with his cigar, which is always a little bit of a shortcut for evil in these things. Smoking is always sort of linked with poor moral judgment, which I always find hilarious. And he's like, yeah, yeah, go. Oh, we've got them. It's great. Go clean it up. And then we have the guy that Jasper has been helping all the time suddenly deciding he's going to stand up to him. And again, I was like, I like Jonathan Harris. He's great. He's been in other lots of other things. I think I met him at a convention years ago. He's a delightful, delightful man. How did you feel that scene was going to end other than your
yeah,
death? Like, he starts to threaten Jasper with the big bad of the Talamasca and everything else, and you don't understand the power that we have, which no, we don't, because by the end of it, we still don't. But of course, it was going to end with him being sliced in half, which it was. And then we get Jasper being kidnapped by the Talamasca. And I don't know how I feel about Jasper being effectively defanged by being put in like the Hannibal Lecter mask.
yeah,
Because Jasper's either the big bad or he's not.
yeah,
You know, he's either the main villain or he's not. And if the Talamasca guy is going to be, again, you can't introduce him this late. You've just taken your main threat and shown he's not much of a threat at
yeah.
all.
No, I agree.
It was like, who am I supposed to be looking at here? Because you've just shown that actually Jasper can be really easily taken with a couple of flash bombs and a carpet. Like, okay, so it's not really King of the Vampires, is
Yeah,
it? I feel like Louis is more of a threat. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I feel like if this had been the equivalent scene, the next thing would have been Louis and Lestat ripping all of these people limb from limb, whereas Jasper's just taken. I have never seen a wanted poster in my life, by the way, because there's the wanted poster at the train station.
um,
That's not a thing.
I mean, I've seen them obviously like around police stations and stuff, but yeah, not in a train station, and definitely not that swiftly. It would take them
No, God,
weeks or
no.
months to come up with a suspect, and then to be able to, share, an image from like CCTV footage or whatever, and then to circulate it to places. In this day and age, that stuff's just done on social media.
Yeah, it's always like, so for example, there was something the other day, it's like a dreadful, dreadful American far right type couple that were harassing someone on the train. And, the police just shared it on social media, and in 20 seconds, everybody was saying, right, it's them. but you don't see wanted posters. All you will see are posters where it says like an incident occurred at this place at this
Yes.
time on this date. If you have any information, please get in touch. That's what you see. You don't see wanted posters. So that was hilarious. That also looked like Manchester Piccadilly that we were trying to pretend was Waterloo.
That's not Waterloo. That is not Waterloo. I have been diverted through Waterloo many times, and there's not Waterloo.
No, Waterloo is not multi-layer like that, I'm afraid, guys. Oh, there is like a little shopping concourse at the top, but that doesn't look anything like it. We have a cute reunion because obviously Helen now at this point knows Doris is her sister and she sacrifices herself to keep Doris safe, which I thought was rather lovely. One of the few, I mean, I do feel like basically, I mean, Nicholas Dunton has tried so hard. I'm so sorry, Angel. Do come on our podcast. We love you. But he's tried so hard, but he's just got nothing to work with.
Well, it's like, isn't it that whole thing with like in most of the Indiana Jones movies, if Indiana Jones wasn't in it, it would not remotely affect the outcome. Like everything would still happen
Yes,
exactly the same way it
yes.
happened. And I feel, unfortunately, that is the situation that Guy finds himself in because absolutely everything to some degree would have probably still happened without his interference. Doris was always going to be looking, after, Keris, because Keris was always going to get killed. It was just unfortunate that it happened after she banged Guy. So it was always going to go this way. Helen's clearly been looking for her sister forever.
I
I
can't
don't think
even
that was a new
remember. I
thing.
can't even remember why anyone was looking at Kevis. Because Kevis was Talamasca, wasn't she? Or was she not?
She wasn't, no. I think we assumed she was because she was carrying around the old book, but obviously the old book was a
No, she was
scrapbook.
just a witch. So she
Yeah.
was just literally a witch that, what, somebody spotted the old book and assumed that it was a 752? Fucking hell.
Well, we know what men are like sometimes, so they just make assumptions.
Yeah, we have to assume that Jasper was surveilling Kevis and then sent the assassin. Yeah, no, none of that. I mean, we may have just forgotten, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. We may have forgotten why Kevis was involved, but yeah, it's kind of strikes me that they just randomly decided that Kevis had the book on the basis of nothing but her carrying around an old scrapbook. I mean, wouldn't you have just stolen the book? She kept putting it down in a
Oh
pub.
yeah,
Could have been you put a bag under the table in a London pub. Good luck having that bag 5 minutes later. That's not how it works.
that's true.
I've been at a table where bags were stolen from under it, and you don't notice. These people are that good. I mean, I didn't because I always have a crossbody now, and even when I'm sat at a table, I normally loop the bag around my leg. The bag is literally like hooked in my leg so that no one can thieve it. But yeah, they could have just taken the bag.
Yeah, whereas the pickpockets and put pockets on display of Helen and Guy, oh, that's not subtle, is it?
That was a little bit rough. That was a little bit rough. This is not Haley Atwell in Mission Impossible with her magic hands. This is very different. Yeah. I mean, Helen practically body checks that woman, and the guy nearly sends her flying across the entirety of the train.
She was straight on like her WhatsApp group going, fucking hell, trying to get on the train. All these bastards keep pushing into me.
This rude bastard keeps pushing me. Fucking people, blah blah blah. Yeah, no, I'd be furious, man. I'd have smacked him back. But I feel like Elizabeth McGovern is the only one who has provided genuine moments of emotional connection. I think she's been really good. I did love it when she said it's always when the cop goes, "You don't really look like a double murderer," and she says it's always a mistake to underestimate a woman of my age. I loved that. I thought that was great.
And see, this is the Ridge, I think the name is. Um,
Yes, Reg. I've literally written Reg question mark
Yeah.
question mark.
Because I know that before we're like, what's it called? I don't know. But this for me is how you get somebody new into the Talamasca. They're
Yes.
investigating a crime with some other like some weird stuff, and then she ends up in a conversation with Helen because Helen clearly propositions her to come and sort of like work for her to some degree. And it's like, no,
Yes.
this is the entry point into the Talamasca. Just have, because it would make sense why they would want to hire, a cop who isn't afraid to go rogue and, off protocol.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is the person that I want to experience a Talamasca series with. That person.
Yes, because she was shown as being completely competent throughout. She would very clearly realize that she was being fed absolute lies. I don't think we needed her boss to be quite so much of a comic character as he was. Or for someone to say, I did say at some point where someone said, "Why don't you stick to your knitting for a few days?" I did write "fuck off" in very large letters. Um, so she's been shown throughout to be quietly, calmly, confident. She knew there was an issue. She continued with it. She's ignored all of her racist, moronic bosses. She's clearly a really capable, talented woman. And yeah, I agree. I was like, well, I mean, Helen, you could do worse, I think. Yeah, so that would be, she was good. I mean, her haircut was terrible, but I feel like she was actually an interesting character that was shown why she was there and why you would have her in the Talamasca, which unfortunately did not for Guy. And then we have Olive, who's still alive, but very stupidly wandering around the mother house. I mean, you've seen him come out. Why? You've seen them drag Jasper out. Why on earth would you go in there? Why? But she finds Checkers, which is glad because I love Checkers. He's my favorite. I want Checkers to be my friend and to kill people that upset me. I feel like he'd do it. I just need to feed him a little bit now and
Yeah.
then. And he can live with me as my personal attack dog. And then we're back with James Cosmo. And again, it's just making Jasper weak was a choice
Yeah.
because I'm kind of embarrassed for him at that point because he's been captured. He has to let James Cosmo let him out of the metal headgear. It's like you've purposely taken your biggest threat and made him substantially weaker than James Cosmo, who you've introduced as Houseman at the last minute.
Yeah. The only way it works is if Jasper is playing the long game and because obviously he has this
Mm.
supposed massive grudge against Talamasca, so we're better than to do it in than from the Amsterdam place. And he's just pretending to be weak because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. This show is just a massive thing of contradictions. Guy's mother's alive. Guy's mother's alive. Oh, it doesn't actually matter. I mean, one of my notes is Guy's mum completely unfucking needed. Like we didn't need that subplot because we get nowhere. Well, we kind of get somewhere right at the very end with the cliffhanger revelation, but it's not. We're not interested. We've moved past that woman now.
Yeah, I mean, so we end with two sequences. We end with James Cosmo taking Jasper into a room full of what looks like about 20 or 30 people. Basically says it's his destiny after Jasper has repeated his line about how there aren't enough vampires and basically says, well, effectively leads him to it with a kind of a fill your boots type of situation. But why would the Talamasca want to create more vampires? Unless they're trying to seek to control them.
Yeah.
Pet vampires, pet Talamasca vamps. But look, bottom line is it's an incredibly bold choice, to say the least, to end your 6 episode series with no answers. So we come to the end of the series. We know absolutely nothing about Jasper. We assume that he is lying his ass off about being a vampire that is younger than Louis. We assume he's lying about all of his repeated nonsense about having walked from Romania to the US with absolutely nothing after all of his family were massacred because this ancient vampire was the grudge was tipped off by the Talamasca. We assume that story is nonsense, that actually he was the ancient vampire that killed everybody, or that we're going to find out that this massacre occurred years before he claimed it did, or centuries before he claimed it did. But the bottom line is we end up knowing nothing about Jasper, nothing about his motivations. Why did he want the 752? What was his purpose? Why does he want more vampires? We know nothing about the Talamasca. Why do they want to create more vampires? Um, Olive ended the series with her lines being enough to be written in each episode on like a post-it note. And we know absolutely nothing about Guy's mother. Don't know who she is, Anna Lemus. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she did to upset the Talamasca. We don't know anything. And if it's not going to turn out that Helen is his mother, then Elizabeth McGovern's acting choices through this are crazy. But the bottom line throughout all of it is, why did they need Guy? It's completely irrelevant to all of it.
Yeah, really is. And
All of it is irrelevant.
yeah,
Helen didn't need to bring him in. She didn't need anyone.
no,
She would have continued, as you said, she would have, the London Mother House would still have imploded because Jasper would have reached a point where James Cosmo's character would have to have done precisely what he did, which is to send people into the Mother House and capture Jasper. The witches would still be alive. There was no reason to have them murdered. Kevis would still be dead. The assassin would still be dead. And Helen would have eventually, at some stage, found out that Doris was her sister, because that line of investigation had nothing to do with Guy. Guy was not instrumental in any way, shape, or form in that reveal. So there was no reason not to leave Guy in New York making six figures at his big US law firm, other than he's Helen's son and somebody was about to assassinate him.
yeah. And we kind of end the show with Guy and Doris on a boat. I think what their plan is to go to America, which is where Guy started. So again, London could have been any mother house. London wasn't a vital setting piece. And then just before the end credits, we get Doris going, "Oh yeah, by the way, I think I know your mum."
Yeah. And we've got, they're obviously being very obviously tailed by a Talamasca agent
Yes.
as well, because they kept showing that shadowy figure on the boat. And I thought we were going to see it was actually somebody, but no, it's just the Talamasca agent on the boat. So yeah, and then it just ends. And in this day and age, with streaming services being quite squirrely about renewing
Mm.
things, it's a very bold choice to not make this series stand alone.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the competition alone within each individual streamer, the studios only have a finite amount of budget, and AMC are obviously financing Mayfair Witches, Interview, Talamasca, amongst other programming. So it is very bold to leave it not only like open-ended, but just there isn't the cliffhanger isn't even a cliffhanger. It's almost an afterthought because yeah, well, no shit, we don't know anything about his mum. Still, like we realize, Eric. We've had Daniel Malloy do more for forwarding this woman's narrative, and that was in the first episode. We've had nothing further since, so it's not even like it's a good cliffhanger. It had the cliffhanger had they sort of reworked the story slightly and had it ended with Jasper being taken, where's Jasper going? Or what? Doris is a vampire, or she's the 752. That would at least be a more interesting cliffhanger than an afterthought of, oh, there is that other plot thread that we haven't remotely touched since the first episode. Oh yeah, let's go see your mum, babes.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's a relatively cheap series to produce. It's filmed in Manchester, doesn't have, with all the greatest of love and respect, William Finkner and Elizabeth McGovern, probably the most expensive stars in the world.
No.
Um, so from that perspective, I can't, and it doesn't have like a ton of special effects or anything like that. I imagine it was a relatively cheap and cheerful show to produce. but still, it needed to have wrapped up something. Because if it gets cancelled now, it's just like, oh, okay. And if it brings it back, they desperately need to do a Monster of the Week with an overarching narrative. Because we had the weird situation of them not having enough episodes, but also not really having enough narrative for those episodes. Because so little happens. Okay. And it's all too rushed. We find out about Helen and her missing sister, and 2 episodes later, she's found her. It's like, okay, why wasn't that planted in the first episode? Yeah, it's just, we come back to the pacing. It's the pacing and the underwriting. Guy is very unfortunately underwritten.
100%.
Um, I mean, we know about his dead mother, we know, but we don't really know much about his telepathic
No.
skills. We now have a little scene of it affecting him. He never used his telepathic skills for anything of any use except for to try and save his life in the scene with Raglan James. And again, it's always a bit awkward when you have a guest star character come in and outshine your lead, because Raglan was by far the more entertaining uh, person in that episode. So, yeah. I mean, I feel like Talamasca has so much potential. I don't think this first series it achieved that potential.
No.
I feel like a 10 episode or 8 episode Monster of the Week with a different narrative, with an overarching narrative, enables them to achieve much more, whether they will choose to go to that or not. I mean, I don't know. Haven't been paying attention to the ratings. It seems to be minimally popular online, primarily, obviously. Gasper, that's the only interest I've seen in it. I don't think. I remember being at New York Comic Con and the moderator said that everyone was going to love Doris so much. To be honest, they've all just kind of left me a bit flat, and it's because I'm just struggling with the pacing of their motivations. Because there is no reason for Doris to have inserted herself in the narrative at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a stab and say that the moderator was a man. And don't quite understand. They think, oh, it's a woman, and like she saves the man in like one with in a couple of scenes. Oh, she's a kick-ass heroine that all the women are going to be like, ooh, when, not realizing that we also like substance to these sorts of women though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. You can't just be the kick-ass woman vibe only works if there's actually the characterization behind it. I mean, did I appreciate Doris being fully prepared with flamethrowers? Yes. Good for you, girl. Did I understand why she put herself in the back of that truck and then wandered in after Guy and immediately burnt Jasper to a crisp?
No.
No, because again, we don't know that Jasper had Kevis killed. It could very easily, I mean, he probably did, but we don't know that. It could easily have been James Cosmo's character. So there was just no reason to ever involve Doris. There was no reason for Doris to speak to Guy on that when he approaches them at the wake. There was no reason for her to speak to him then, apart from the expedition dump about Soledad Marcel. God, that poor woman died for absolutely nothing. What, she died to protect Olive as a spy. She died, sorry, I'm trying to. I mean, she doesn't even. That woman died, and her efforts weren't even noticed by the people that needed to be noticed because it's the cops who find her hard drive.
Yeah.
And the cops that actually come up with the reveal that Olive. But again, all of that was unnecessary because Kellen clearly didn't trust Olive because she gives her the wrong information for where Guy and Doris are.
Yeah, before we started watching Talamasca, we had seen Talamasca in Queen of the Damned, and I think hopes were high that we're like, oh, cool, we're finally going to get the Talamasca done right. And I'm not sure that we've had it right yet. I mean, it is better than Queen of the Damned in some respects with the Talamasca stuff, but it is also confusing. And I feel that maybe Mayfair Witches has had a better stab at Talamasca than Talamasca has.
Well, what I think I would say is that I'm not sure we've actually seen a proper Talamasca agent yet, because what we've got is James Cosmo, who is obviously King Talamasca and is in it for his own reasons. We've seen Raglan James, who is a glorious opportunist. What we haven't actually seen is somebody that's like, oh, we've been looking at these vampires for this long. Here's the information you need for this episode. Here's what we'd like. Can you get the magical artifact? If it goes to a monster of the week approach, that's what they will
Yeah.
need. They need basically the watcher, the Anthony Head, the helper, the person that is always there, that is always worked at which is what effectively I forget his name now because my mind has gone blank. The guy in Queen of the Damned that is Jesse's handler. All of that, that's what he's doing.
David.
David, David. But we haven't actually seen that. We've got Helen, who is sort of Talamasca, but hasn't actually provided any information on Jasper, anything. Helen is the problem with Talamasca is that it is a generic spy show with vampires and witches added on. So we have Helen as like this Talamasca agent, except she's not actually provided any useful information about Jasper, about vampires, about witches, about anything in that universe. She's just the generic spy master that we don't know whether we can trust her or not. And I think part of it is that we got immediately sidetracked down the telepathic sister route. And then we find out that actually her power isn't telepathy or telekinesis, it is memory. And so that's why they trained her to be the 752. But because we instantly kind of went down the Carrie's, Institute, Stranger Things type route with Helen and Doris, we didn't actually get to see Helen be oh yeah, that guy, yeah. So he was around in, 18s, whatever, whatever. There was there's not been anything about the Talamasca really to kind of showcase their knowledge, showcase their depth. It's just all been the kind of people you see in any spy thriller. So the tech guy, the dodgy guy at the head of the organization that is always in it for his own, the person you can't trust. But all of that rich shared, history and all the kind of cool tidbits they could have been writing in, they've not done any of that because it's just a spy thriller with vampires.
Yes, but that is, series one is over. We'll obviously wait and see if a second series happens. Um, and that I guess brings us to the end of our side quest. Helen loves a side quest. We love a side quest. But I guess next time you will be hearing us, we will be getting back to series two. We started it and then we got distracted by
Back
yes, we got distracted.
back to Louis and Claudia, back to Louis and Claudia showcasing God bless them, how truly appalling they are at group dynamics, group politics, and being able to read the room. And Louis' tendency to just fall deeply in love with pretty faces and not ascertain the very, very, very profound threats.
Yes, he's not too good at reading flags, but that happens to a lot of us. But just everybody, I guess, in the Immortal universe is just too trusting. Guy's very trusting, Louis clearly very trusting.
Louis is very trusting. Louis is super trusting. He sees this pretty little twink and he's like, oh, this guy looks adorable. I will be friends with him forever. I'm sure he won't brutally lynch my daughter on stage. It'll be fine. Oh, Louis, my sweet angel. But yes, we will be back with the second episode of Interview with the Vampire. And obviously, we will keep you up to date on any interview tidbits. We've had a tiny little, had that new tiny little, like, well, it's not even a trailer, is it? It's like promo spot with Sam Reed as Lestat, which is just bringing me joy because it's the whole nonsense of, you know, I enter into a room with that fern and I do not enter. Oh, he's so dramatic. He's such a diva.
So yeah, we'll be back soon with refocus on interview. Until then, please do give us a like, rating, and follow wherever you are listening to us. And all of our socials and email contact details are in the show notes. So get in touch.
Bye.